You were born in Mashhad, Iran, on April 19, 1939. Your family is almost nothing, a small house, and a father who preaches for a living just to survive. Your father is a low-paid village cleric, and every coin your mother finds is stretched to keep the household fed. Some weeks, there's no meat on the table. There's always, without fail, prayer. By the age of 4, you're already reciting the Quran aloud, long before you can read a single word of it. Your father drills Arabic grammar, jurisprudence, and logic into you, the tools of a cleric's mind, hammered into a small child. Every dawn, before the sun even rises, your father takes you with him to the mosque. You are one of 8 children packed into that small house, and poverty visits every single one of you equally. You are also a Sayyid, a descendant of the Prophet's family, a lineage that will one day mark you with a black turban. Your father tells you plainly that knowledge is the only inheritance he has left to give you. The golden dome of the Imam Reza shrine hangs over nearly every street you walk as a boy. Mashhad is one of the holiest cities in Shia Islam, and it is the only home you know. Even as a small child, you show an appetite for study that outpaces boys twice your age. You do not know it yet, but this city opens your story, and one day, it will close it too. Long before politics, before power, before any of it, you are simply a boy who loves scripture. As a teenager, you leave home to study at the great seminaries of Qom. In Qom, you sit among some of the sharpest religious minds in the country. One of your most influential teachers, there is the revered Grand Ayatollah Khomeini, the leading religious authority of his era. You also immerse yourself in Islamic philosophy and Quranic exegesis, subjects that will shape your worldview for the rest of your life. Later, you travel to Najaf, in Iraq, another ancient center of Shia scholarship. There, you sit in the lectures of a stern, uncompromising cleric named Ayatollah Khomeini. His lessons are not only about scripture, they are about a monarchy he believes has betrayed the nation. You return to Iran, settle in Qom, and begin teaching and writing yourself. The Iran you live in is ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, propped up by American support and a feared secret police called SAVAK. You begin secretly distributing Khomeini's banned sermons, smuggled inside ordinary religious texts. For this, you are arrested, not once but again and again, across more than a decade. Each arrest does not soften your resolve. It hardens your certainty that the monarchy has to fall. By the mid-1970s, you are one of the quiet organizers of a movement most of the world has not even noticed yet. In 1977, you were exiled to a remote town in Iran's southeast, but outside, the movement keeps growing without you. 2 weeks later, Ayatollah Khomeini returns to Iran to a welcome of millions. You are there, not as a bystander, but as one of the men Khomeini trusts most. Within months, a referendum declares Iran an Islamic republic by an overwhelming margin. You are appointed to the new Revolutionary Council, then made Deputy Minister of Defense. You help build the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a force that will outlast every leader who ever created it. In November 1979, revolutionary students seized the American embassy in Tehran, plunging Iran into confrontation with Washington. The hostage crisis that follows lasts 444 days and reshapes Iran's relationship with the world for decades. You become one of the revolution's most trusted preachers, delivering the Friday sermons that shape public opinion. You are named Tehran's Friday prayer leader, one of the most powerful pulpits in the entire country. The revolution you helped build is barely a year old, and already, it has enemies circling on every side. In September 1980, Iraq invades Iran, dragging the young republic into a war that will last 8 years. At home, a different war unfolds, a wave of bombings aimed squarely at the men leading the new Islamic Republic. On June 27, 1981, you are delivering a sermon inside a Tehran mosque, a tape recorder set near the podium to record your words. Inside, that ordinary tape recorder is a bomb. It detonates only feet from where you are standing. You survive, but the blast tears through your right side, and your right arm never fully works again. Doctors later call your survival nothing short of a miracle. The very next day, a second bombing tears through the Islamic Republican Party's headquarters, killing dozens of senior officials at once. Weeks later, the country's newly elected president, Mohammad Ali Rajai, is killed in yet another bombing. Both attacks are blamed on the Mojahedin-e-Khalq, an armed opposition group waging open war against the new state. News of your survival spreads fast, and the man they tried to silence becomes, instead, a symbol. You carry that injury for the rest of your life, a permanent, visible cost to the revolution you helped build. Within weeks, against doctors' advice, you're back at work, one arm useless, the other still writing. Months after the bombings, in October 1981, you were elected president of Iran. You're the first cleric ever to hold the office, and at just 42, the youngest president in Iran's modern history. But on paper, the presidency is not where the real power sits. Real authority rests with Khomeini as supreme leader, and with a prime minister you often clash with, Mir Hossein Mousavi. For 8 brutal years, the war with Iraq grinds on. Trench warfare, chemical weapons, entire cities under siege. Iraqi missiles even reach Tehran itself, in what becomes known as the War of the Cities. You visit the front lines, attend funerals by the hundreds, and tell an exhausted nation to keep enduring. In 1988, exhausted and devastated, Khomeini finally accepts a ceasefire he once compared to drinking from poison cup. That same year, you are re-elected to a second term as president, just as the old revolutionary leader's health begins to fail. No one around you yet imagines what is about to happen next. Behind the scenes, a powerful ally named Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani quietly begins shaping what comes after Khomeini. On June 3, 1989, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini dies. Millions pour into the streets to mourn the man who built the Islamic Republic. With the country suddenly without its founder, the Assembly of Experts meets in an emergency session to choose a successor. Your name is raised among the candidates, but by the Islamic Republic's own rules, you do not actually qualify. You are not a grand Ayatollah. You do not hold the highest rank of religious scholarship the position is supposed to require. Rafsanjani argues fiercely on your behalf, convincing skeptical clerics that you are the man to hold the country together. You tell the Assembly, in your own words, that they should weep for Islamic society if they are seriously considering you. The Assembly disagrees with you completely and moves ahead anyway. Within hours, the very Constitution is quietly rewritten to remove the qualification you were missing. Under this doctrine, called guardianship of the Islamic jurist, the supreme leader answers to no elected body at all. You are named Iran's second supreme leader, a position with no fixed term and functionally no clear way out. You take the position anyway. You go on to hold it for the next 37 years. As supreme leader, you command the armed forces, appoint judges, control state media, and hold the final word over nearly every major decision in Iran. For nearly 2 decades, that authority goes largely unchallenged, at least in public. Behind you, the country slowly rebuilds from war under a string of presidents who each learn the limits of their office. In July 1999, student protests erupt after a raid on a Tehran University dormitory, one of the first real cracks in public loyalty. Then, in June 2009, a disputed presidential election ignites the largest protests Iran has seen since the revolution itself. Millions accuse the government of stealing the vote, and crowds fill the streets for weeks. The first time in your reign, crowds in the streets chant slogans aimed directly at you. The movement's leaders, Mousavi and Karoubi, are placed under house arrest, where they remain for years. The protests are crushed within months, but they do not disappear. They simply go quiet and wait. In late 2017 and into 2018, economic anger boils over into protests across dozens of cities at once. In November 2019, a sudden fuel price hike triggers what becomes known as Bloody November, one of the deadliest crackdowns in the Islamic Republic's history. Hundreds are reported killed within days, and the internet across the entire country goes dark. In September 2022, a young woman named Mahsa Amini dies in police custody after being detained over how she wore her hijab. Her death ignites protests that spread further and last longer than any that came before them. A new chant rises across Iran's cities. Woman, life, freedom. Once again, the response is the same. Mass arrests, internet blackouts, and force. By the 2020s, you are by some counts the single most sanctioned individual on the entire earth. You are by then both revered as God's chosen guardian of the revolution and cursed as the reason that revolution never let its people go. Through it all, the standoff between Iran, the United States, and Israel over Iran's nuclear program never truly ends. Sanctions tighten further, proxy conflicts spread across the region, and diplomacy collapses again and again. By 2025, hardliners inside Iran's own government are pushing for confrontation, even as the economy buckles under decades of isolation. Inside the country, unrest never fully disappears. It simply simmers beneath a heavier and heavier security presence. You are now in your mid-80s, still ruling a nation that both reveres you and resents you in equal measure. Behind closed doors, clerics quietly debate who might succeed you, though no clear answer ever emerges. Your own advisors begin warning you, quietly, that the standoff with the West is edging towards something none of you can fully control. In early 2026, intelligence reports warn that a strike on Iran's nuclear and military sites is being actively prepared. You address the nation one final time, warning that any attack will meet what you call a crushing response. You are told the warnings again and again. You do not step back. On February 28, 2026, everything changes at once. The United States and Israel launch a coordinated military assault on Iran. Missiles and airstrikes hit military and government sites across the country within hours. Oil markets spike within minutes, and world leaders scramble to respond to a conflict many feared, but few expected so suddenly. In the earliest stages of that offensive, you are killed. Your death brings an abrupt end to a reign that lasted 37 years. State television falls silent for hours before the announcement is finally made. Behind closed doors, officials rush to name a successor, even as the strikes continue. A government that had outlived wars, sanctions, and uprisings could not outlive this. 37 years on a throne, he once said he never wanted over in a single morning. Iran declares 40 days of national mourning. Millions fill the streets, some in genuine grief for the man they called their guardian. Others mark the same day with something closer to relief after decades of fear. Even inside his own family, reactions to his death are far from simple. Your body is carried at last back to the city where your entire story started. You are laid to rest at the Imam Reza shrine in Mashhad, beneath the very same golden dome you grew up walking under. You were nothing but tyranny to millions more who chanted for your downfall in the streets for over a decade. Historians will spend decades arguing over which version of that story is closer to the truth. Whichever version of that story you believe, one thing is no longer in question. The boy from Mashhad and the supreme leader of Iran are, at last, the very same man, resting in the very same ground. You're a history now,